Welcome to Bishop's Vintage Car Audio Repair, where I make your classic car audio sound new again. I thought I would take a moment to do a little bit of video for my to promo my business and to kind of talk a little bit about it. Because I have several radios, an ECU, a set of faceplates for the Panasonic stereos and the 93 Miata LEs that are being refinished. And I have a radio that is about to be shipped very soon. I'm just waiting for one little thing to come in the mail. So there's a little bit of everything here, actually. So this is a great time to make this video. As a matter of fact, perfect timing. So what do we got going on here? So I primarily specialize in early Miata stereos, the NAs and the NBs. So that's, if you've got one of these black Panasonic radios, this one's got a bad display, but it's going to be fully restored. And I have some parts to fix it. Like there's a replacement display for this one. I have a 1993 Miata ECU here that is in for a cap job. It needs new capacitors, and I had to order this resistor that was damaged. This particular car wouldn't idle. And sure enough, this capacitor let loose and caused some damage to this section of the board. It ruined a resistor, a ceramic resistor, and it just happens to be on pin 2W, which is the idle circuit. Pretty self-explanatory there. So this, we're just waiting for a resistor on this one, and that's going to go back to California as soon as that resistor comes in. I've got right here a 93, or is this a 94? This is a 94, and I can tell because it doesn't have those colored dashes underneath the buttons. This is a 94 Miata. I believe this came out of a Mariner Blue. I could be wrong. Anyway, this is in for a full restoration. This is typically what they look like when they show up. This is pretty nasty. It's missing the cassette door. Yeah, it's rough. This is how they typically look, though. These overlays are all busted up. Number 2451. That is the 51st stereo to show up for 2024 since January 1st. That's how they're numbered. 2451. So year is 24. Number 51. 2452 is actually this one. I had to do them. I had to prioritize this one. Now this particular stereo, this is the same model, but this one is in better condition. This is what they look like from the factory. This one is, again, one of my specialties is I can restore these faceplates. I've developed a few different methods and tricks that I have been perfecting over 3 years. And I can take, a stereo that I would not, let me be clear, if a customer sent me this stereo to be refinished, I would actually reject that part of the job and I would just do a mechanical restoration or electronic restoration on it. I would not refinish this stereo because it is too nice. I will explain that to the customer. And if they insist that it get refinished, I would actually, I would just keep these faceplates and knobs and just replace them with my refinished ones. Let's take a look at some refinished faceplates that are currently being restored. So these faceplates were stripped of all of their original finish. I actually put these in an ultrasonic bath for about an hour. Maybe an hour and a half, actually. And I strip them down to bare plastic, and I repaint them with silver paint. I cannot replicate the original finish exactly because it is chrome. I cannot chrome plastic. What they originally did was they would chrome the plastic, and then they would apply a matte finish clear coat over the chrome. And that was your high-tech electronics finish of the 90s, and that was the look. And that is impossible to replicate with what I have for resources. So I use paint. But I don't just spray paint it with off-the-shelf Walmart paint. This is, the base coat is Rust-Oleum silver, titanium silver to be exact. And the clear coat is where the magic happens. The clear coat that I use is a two-part, kind of an epoxy type of a clear coat, or an activated clear coat. And what it does is it applies like normal spray paint, but the chemical reaction within the paint is more akin to what you would call an off-the-gun professional clear coat for automotive exterior purposes. So that clear coat is more durable than anything you can buy off the shelf, and it costs about 3 times what a normal can of clear coat costs. Not only that, but it can only be used within 48 hours of its activation. So, yeah, it gets expensive. So these are I'm going to be applying decals. These are water slide decals that I custom make using a color laser printer. And I use a laser printer because the toner doesn't fade out like inkjet ink does. It's melted plastic is what it is. It's plastic melted onto substrate. So it lasts longer, it's more durable. Now these go on before the clear coat. So when I clear coat the face plates, these are also protected as well. But these are I got 3 Panasonic face plates right there, ready to be decaled. But let me show you what they look like when they're done. So I have a finished faceplate from my previous batch, and this is what they look like when they're done. Now these overlays right here, these are custom made by a print shop on the East Coast. And these are made, these are direct scans of an original set, and they were able to clean up the artwork and basically replicate it onto polycarbonate. This is a silk screen process. This is a pretty neat process. I used to work in the printing industry myself, so I know what goes into making these. These aren't paper, they're not cardboard, they are actually polycarbonate, just like the originals, and you can see light right through them, exactly as you're supposed to. But this is what that looks like when it's done. It looks pretty good. Not perfect, but then again, this is the best we can do with what we have for resources. But I do get a ton of these Panasonic radios. Now, when I refer to these, they're either Panasonic, Matsushita, or National. Let's take one of these. Let's take this one out here. We can take a better look at it. Now, this is unit number 2453. So if you happen to be watching these videos and you happen to be that customer, this is your radio. This has not been touched yet. This is something that, yeah, take a look at this. This display is gone. It's toast. This is sun damage. This thing was in direct sunlight for way too long. And unfortunately, it does happen, and it is not repairable. The display itself is not repairable. It is done for. So what I'll do is I'll often buy up parts radios just for these parts. And that's what I did for this customer. So she'll be getting a whole new display control board, but I'll be reusing her faceplate because it's in perfect condition. But this radio is in typical condition for Panasonic. So yeah, these are made by Matsushita, and they're sold to the manufacturers as either Panasonics or Nationals. There is no difference between any of these models as far as function, but some do support power antenna and some don't. It doesn't seem to be, there seems to be no rhyme or reason for that feature, but the 1267s generally do have power antenna support, whereas the 1161s, the older models, do not. Anyway, but I found some 1267s that don't put out the 12 volts needed for the power antenna. I do get a lot of mid-90s, late 90s NB Miatas that have late 90s that have the Bose stereos, and generally with those stereos I do a lot of I'll just service the cassette decks, the CD players, and install Bluetooth. Bluetooth is a big seller on those because it's such a seamless install. So let me talk a little bit about Bluetooth. So far in this video, I've really focused on my restorative capabilities. My drawer is broken. Oh, I'll fix it later. Anyway, I restore a lot of these radios back to a good factory condition, great sound, full functionality. But Bluetooth is something that I am known for. For basically every Miata stereo, except for the MPSS or the sensory, what are they called? The, can't think of it. But the next generation after these silver stereos, I don't do it on those newer ones because there's no good way for me to tap in like I can with these. And with the later model, the Bose radios or the single DIN radios, those actually have a port in the back that I can tie into from the inside. So my Bluetooth mods, I'll just show you what I use. Give you a little visual here. This is how they come. And what I do with my Bluetooth mods is I've seen some installs and how-to guides on how to do these online. And it's really, I couldn't do that to my customers because it's just janky as all get up. What I do with these is I tie them in directly to the preamp. Either through the accessory port by wiring it internally, or in the case of these Pioneers, I actually tap in between the tuner and the call it the motherboard or the main board of the radio. There's a series of wires that I can tap into for a nice clean install that sounds amazing. But the how-to instructions for doing these online, it has you using cut up paper clips and poking them into the connectors in the back. I don't do that here. That's not what I'm charging my customers for. These actually get stripped of these two headers here. I strip them off with a hot air station, and I solder directly to the pads. I then coat these in a very thick walled shrink tubing for protection, and they get slipped inside the radio in a way that you don't even know they're there. And they're often powered one of two ways. So, for example, on these Pioneers, it's powered off of the, there's an amp turn-on circuit. It puts out 12 volts. So I tap off of that, and that's how I power these up. So that way the module is only powered on when the radio is powered on. For the Panasonic 1267s, they're powered off the power antenna circuit. What that does is when the tuner is on, this is turned on, and it activates that way. On the Bose radios, it's activated by an external switch. That does two things. It powers up the module and it switches the radio into line input mode. Now, a lot of people ask me if I will help them, walk them through repairing their radios. I don't do that. It's not a service I offer. A lot of what I do is basic electronics. It's very simple. I basically replace capacitors, lamps, and any other objects I find that are components that are damaged, I'll replace, or whatever I have to do to make it work. Cassette deck repairs are pretty simple. Clean it, lube it, new belts, demagnetize the head, the basic stuff, and make repairs as needed. So one service I do offer, again, is I restore these faceplates, and I'm not going to show my customers how to do that because it's just too involved, and the methods that I have are my own. But, it's a service that has become very popular. I've done, 53 stereos. I have 53 invoices up to this point. A couple of those are still open, but it's been growing year over year. I've decided not to take on stereos at this time. At the time of filming, I will not do your Toyota Celica radios. I will not do your Super radios. I've done a couple of them, and they didn't go as well as I had hoped. I don't really have schematics. That's the other thing, is getting schematics for these car stereos is nearly impossible. With the exception of those Pioneers, I have those. But schematics are all but impossible to find. And so if I don't know the radio as well as I need to, I'm not going to take it on. And just like that, that radio is now on its way to, that one was going to Maine, actually. And I have another slot open. That one's going to take that place of the, and they go down the line like so. This is my next radio. This is going to get a full restoration. Everything's broken. We're going to fix everything. And still waiting for that pesky resistor for that ECU. So I kind of have made a name for myself in the Miata community. I have customers all over the country, including I have one in Denmark. I've got a couple in Canada. And one of my products even made it all the way to Sweden. So I've been doing this now for 3 years, and I enjoy it. My services don't come cheap, but they are guaranteed, and I do my best to do as much as I can for what the customer is paying me for. I've been known to fix things that weren't even part of the original repair order. I have, for example, I just replaced an FM button for a customer because I just happen to have quite a few of them, and he didn't get charged for it. So I try to take care of my customers. I try to form, a business relationship with my customers so that they understand that I'm not here to rip them off. I'm here to make their stereos as good and beautiful as I possibly can. So let's take a look at some of the equipment I use. So this was a big investment here. This is a Vision Luxo Circus LED lamp with magnifier. This actually replaced an original Luxo lamp, one of the commercial style gray metal ones. You've seen them over here on Amelia's candle shop right now. This is what she uses when she makes her candles. That was my old lamp. It's a fluorescent model. Gotta warm it up. There we go. I found that this light just isn't bright enough. And so I went ahead and I replaced it with this one. This was extravagant. I'll admit this was not cheap. This was quite expensive. But it's the best lamp money can buy for the work I do. I forget which diopter option I picked on that. Does it say in this booklet? It doesn't say. But you actually pick which magnifying power, what kind of magnifying power you want when you order these. Very nice light. Very flexible. It tilts, it swivels, it curls, fries. The whole thing. For solder equipment, I'm strictly a Hakko man. I love Hakko equipment. This is my FX888D. Now, I bought this when I started the business officially. This was one of my first business purchases. And it actually, I was going to upgrade it to a better model at some point. And I've never had to. It's the perfect iron. It's gone through countless tips. I use the FR301 desoldering gun. This is something I planned on using for about a year or two and then buying a more robust model, but I haven't had to. This thing is just incredible. So Hakko soldering equipment all the way. For the occasional surface mount soldering that I do, I'm still using a quick 861DW. This was actually one that I found through Louis Rossman's videos. All he ever really does is surface mount and reballing chips, and I don't do that kind of soldering, but this is very handy for two things. I have it pre-programmed for two heat settings that I use most commonly. Shrink tubing, I use 200 degrees with almost the full fan speed, and 300 degrees for surface mount capacitor replacement. This is a very well built unit, and when I buy this stuff, I make sure I'm buying from legitimate resellers, not from Amazon. I don't want to end up with counterfeit. There's actually counterfeit quick 861s, and there's counterfeit Hakko FX 888Ds. Believe it or not. Now, for measuring and other electronic readings, I use a Fluke 45. I bought this one used. These are very expensive new. The Fluke multimeters are, yeah, they're hideously expensive, but they're also well built. This one's probably 30 to 35 years old, and it has a fluorescent display. I like this one because it has two separate readouts. So if I'm measuring voltage and frequency, I can do that at the same. I can do both at the same time. Or if I'm measuring, whatever, it kind of does everything. I don't use it a ton. I don't really have to, but when I do need to read something, that's what I use. I have an old Fluke 8012. My intent was to, I've had this one forever, but my intent was to set this up and give me a more precise readout on the power supply, because the analog gauge, it's not the most accurate thing in the world, but I've never had to do that. Which brings me to my power supply, my benchtop power supply. Now, these are kind of revered by those who own them. This is from the Apollo era. This thing is about 50, 60 years old. No, it's like about 60 years old. Dates back to about 1964. It's a PD 1210, so that's 12 volts, 10 amps. I just happen to live right near an electronics scrapyard. They actually liquidate electronic equipment from manufacturers and resell it to hobbyists and to other manufacturers, and that's where I found this. They wouldn't ship it; it weighs too much, so I was able to drive over and grab it. I think I paid $40. Has a cracked meter cover. That's okay, just cosmetic. And it had the pilot light was burnt out, so I had to replace that. But what's nice about these analog power supplies is that they produce a clean, noise-free voltage output. They're very clean. I don't think you can buy anything like this today. Everything is computerized, and I don't think anything like this exists in the modern day. So I'm going to hang on to that for a long time. It's never let me down. It has a built-in current limit feature, so I can set it really low if I want to, if I'm about to power something up that might blow up in my face. But just durable. I mean, if it was good enough for NASA, it's good enough for me. More recent purchase, and I only use this for very specific troubleshooting techniques. So this is a Rigol DS1104Z. I bought this. I bought the higher end model with 4-channel, 1 gig sample per second, and 100 megahertz readout, or 100 megahertz sample rate. This thing is. I use it for some very specific tasks that I need an oscilloscope for. This is actually my first oscilloscope, and I'm still learning how to use it and how to work it into my troubleshooting routines in a way that aids my my abilities to solve problems. Multimeters are great. but sometimes you just need to see what's really happening, and that's where an oscilloscope comes in handy. There's a lot I don't know about this machine, but I had a really good year last year, and I just kind of spent a little bit of money on some better equipment. I will be buying another multimeter, though. This thing is great, but it is kind of flaky. So I'm going to be getting a new multimeter. Probably going to go with a Rigel. This thing seems to be pretty well built. Before I bought this, I watched the video that Triple E Blog put out, and it wasn't unfavorable. It's not a $4,000 scope. It's a $500 scope. So adjust your expectations accordingly. But it's a decent scope for what I'm doing. It also supports digital, which I don't do, so, But I bought the 4-channel because I wanted to be able to record the output of 4 audio channels at the same time to see what they're really doing. It's cool, but not necessary for what I do here. But anyway, at least I have a scope when I need it. And it's not a bargain. It was a bargain basement one, but it's not like ultra base model. Like it does a lot of things that I'll never need it for, but what's nice about it is if I decide to close up shop, it's easier to sell a 4-channel scope than a 2-channel scope. That was kind of my justification for buying a little bit extra. Of course, I've got a MacBook Air on my bench. Why wouldn't I? This is a 2017 model MacBook Air. I actually built, my day job, I handle the purchasing and disposal of equipment, computer equipment, as a function of my job. And so I kind of get first dibs on anything we get rid of, and we were unloading a ton of these MacBook Airs. I'm also an Apple service technician by trade, so I have spare parts. I have bins of spare parts, brand new parts that will never get used. So I actually went and built myself a brand new MacBook Air just this year. It has a brand new keyboard, a brand new battery, brand new trackpad, brand new cooling fan, just from my parts bin. I have to use this stuff up. And once I put it all together, I bought it from my employer. I actually did pay for it. It wasn't free. I think it might even have a new screen. But a lot of new parts on this machine that it didn't really need, but, if you smoke them if you got them, as they say. But that's I use that mainly for entertainment while I'm working. I just play podcasts on it. That's all I really use it for. The shop computer is over there. That is the primary machine. I actually have 2 that I use to run the business. This is my Mac Mini, and it was initially purchased for the business, and I moved it down here just for convenience. I have that laser printer that I use to print my customer invoices, instructions, and other things get printed out on that. That is actually the last of the HP LaserJet 4000s. That was the last, the end of the 4000s. It's the 4015, and they ended up renaming that line the M600 series. So if you care about printer history, that's same chassis as the M600, but different name, different cartridge, of course. Why not? And upstairs I have the MacBook Pro, which is also used for the business when I do these videos and also when I communicate to customers. I got computers all over the house that I use. So a couple of supplies that I typically have on hand. This Slick 50 supercharged lube is good for loosening up the old grease on old cassette deck mechanisms and getting them moving again, so then you can clean out as much of the old grease as you can and you replace it. I do have a bottle of acetone over there. I use a lot of this deoxit on micro switches, rotary encoders and such, or not rotary, or rotary dials. And I use the D100 when I don't want to make a mess. I got a couple of these Peak instruments. This is the ESR meter, the ESR 70. If I suspect a bad cap as being the problem, or a particular one, I'll pull it out, test it, and see what it comes back as. This has been very handy when it comes to troubleshooting specific problems that are unique to a particular radio. So that has been a very useful piece of equipment here in the shop. Right now my bench is a complete and total mess. I just had to order more solder. This is what I use. I use Kester leaded solder. It's compatible with what's already in the radios. You can use lead-free solder, but I choose not to. I use the leaded stuff, and I only use name brand. I don't use the cheap shit. That's the thing. I buy all my parts. So when I buy capacitors, like for example, up here, I have my my capacitor library or inventory. I typically buy Panasonic or Nichicon if I can find it in the size and value that I need. If not, I'll go with a lesser brand like, what do we have here? Are these Chemets? No, these are, where are these? I've been phasing these out, actually. Not that there's anything wrong with them. These are Worths. There's nothing wrong with them, but I've been trying to phase them out and go with a higher end brand. But at the time, that was all I could find. One interesting point I want to make is some of these capacitors and the specific values that are used in audio equipment are starting to get hard to find. The 50 volt 0.22 caps, I use these on almost every radio I work on, and they're getting scarce. These are Nichicons. They're out of production. I can't get them through Mauser anymore, and I have to scour eBay for surplus lots, and that's where I've been getting those. I'm going to probably do I'm going to try a different value cap in a different radio just to see, or in one of the models I work on, and just to see what happens, if it makes a difference. They're used in the audio stage, and you typically don't want to stray too far from what the factory spec'd. It can have an adverse effect on the audio quality. For example, I was just messing around one day and I put ceramic capacitors in the audio stage of one of my Pioneer radios, and it sounded odd. It worked, but it just had an odd sound, almost like a ring to it. It didn't sound good. So I took those out and put electrolytics back in. But these are all the capacitors that I stock, and all of them get used in one stage or another, pretty much. That's why it's hard for someone to, like if you're doing your own radio, you have to either build a cap list, or you have to and buy one or two or however many of each cap you need. And that gets time consuming. It gets expensive because you're buying them in smaller quantities. I buy my caps in quantities of 100 or more. So I start at 100 units, no matter what it is. Even if I need one, I'll buy 100 of them just in case. I'm building out my inventory. I still have room to grow. I've got my Bluetooth modules. I think I talked about these earlier. I buy these directly from Asia, China. I buy them from China. I don't buy these through a middleman. I buy them directly. So I get a better price, and I buy them in bulk. So I get a pretty decent price on these, and I buy a lot of them. So, yeah, that's been working out pretty well. I had a bit of a scare a little while ago when my normal sources completely dried up. So I had to find out who was making them and buy them directly from the manufacturer. So that was upsetting. It turns out they actually changed the name of the part. They changed the brand name from Drock to LQSC. And now they're Drock again. I don't know what they're doing. Anyway, belts. I stock belts. Now these, I just made a massive order of belts. I'm running out right now. So I buy my belts from a supplier called Turntable Needles. And he gives me a business discount because I buy so many from him. And yeah, they're good quality belts. Trying to find a quality, legitimate belt supplier actually turned out to be more challenging than I thought. I was buying them initially off of eBay and Amazon, and they were very poor quality, very inconsistent, not good. And that was before I started the business. So I ordered, when I was doing my own stereo, I bought some belts from Turntable Needles and turntableneedles.com. And I ordered a couple of belts from them. They're a little pricey. His prices are a little on the high side, so I'm thinking. But the quality was consistent, and the shipment very quick. The guy's great to work with. So I have very grateful that I found that supplier, honestly. My lamps, my original supplier went out of business, so I've been having a hard time finding certain lamps. I don't do LED conversions because it requires you to make some significant changes to the circuitry and the lamp, or the lamp circuitry. I don't want to go down those roads and do that. You'd have to put resistors in, and I just don't want to do it. So I stick with incandescents. And let's be honest, the incandescents should last many, many, many years. I replace all of them as part of my restoration work. And that gets time consuming and expensive, but it leads to a more consistent and better product in the end. Of course, I've got more peak instruments in this case. And this year, so every year I, depending on what kind of profit I make, I invest more in better equipment. But yeah, these are my peak. There's my DCA 55, my LCR 40, and as you all know, and I use this all the time, but I'm going to put it in the case, protect it, take care of it. But I do invest back into the business. Better computer equipment, better instruments, better tools. I go through a ton of these cotton swabs. One radio, I probably go through about a dozen of these swabs, depending on what's wrong with it. Seriously, about a dozen per radio. I buy alcohol by the gallon. But that's what it costs. That's what it takes to produce a quality product in the end, and to keep your customers happy. I ship through FedEx. I use FedEx because I've had fewer issues on the personal side of things. I've had fewer issues with FedEx than I've ever had with UPS. UPS gave me a very bad taste years ago, and I kind of am silently boycotting them. I don't like UPS. I really don't. FedEx, they've treated me well over the years. These are just some parts chassis I've been picking from for various components. This is actually a perfectly good radio, but it's probably going to end up being a parts unit because I need the parts. I've got a cassette deck here. Just a lot of parts. Just got to get these sorted. That right there, that's all radio parts. So you might be wondering, what happens if you send me a radio? What happens if I receive a radio that needs a major component? Like, classic example, this Panasonic, needs a whole display. What do? Well, that means I have to buy a radio. So if you're wondering why, if you get a quote from me and it seems high, well, that's why. Because sometimes I have to replace major components, and I do have to charge for that. That display right there that customer needs actually ended up costing me $100 because I had to buy an entire radio for it. That's just how it goes. And I don't charge you for the whole radio. I figure out a fair price for that display and what it takes to get one, and I tack it on to the bill, But, it's not very often that actually happens. Oh, one more thing I wanted to show you. When it comes to, measuring anything in precision, precisely, I have this, it's actually my dad gave this to me. My dad is a machinist. And I asked him, I said, if you ever happen to find a good used, like a Mitutoyo, caliper, digital caliper, I'd love to get one. And he actually went out and bought this for me. This is an in size. It's not a Mitutoyo, but it's a very good quality. Way better than what you're going to get at Harbor Freight. which is what I had. This is a decent, hefty piece of machinery. Nice feel to it. And yeah, it's good for... I haven't really had a huge use for it on the radio side of things, but it is in my arsenal of tools. And I keep it right here in the shop. But nice piece of equipment. My dad got that for me, and that was nice of him. But anyway, so that's pretty much it, guys. So I'm really growing. The customers are pouring in, word of mouth. That's how I do it. But a lot of folks find me on YouTube, and you can reach out to me. I'll put my web address in the description of this video, and you can go to my website and fill out an online form, and I'll get back to you when I can, and we can talk about what you need and what it'll cost. The Apple II is not part of this business, but I'd like to work this in somehow, print my invoices on it or something like that, but I don't know, well, maybe not. But anyway, thank you all for your support, and I look forward, if you need my services now or in the future, please reach out, and I'll see what I can do. I don't do every radio that comes my way. For example, I've done a couple radios for some Jeep owners, and those went pretty well. So classic AMC and Jeep radios, I kind of like working on those. I've done a couple for some Toyota owners, didn't go very well. Some of the early to mid 80s Fujitsus and Clarions are kind of a bear to work on. And they tend to go sideways. I find the mechanical parts of those radios to be the most challenging. I actually had one go up in smoke right in front of me. Nothing I did. It just happened to it just wasn't in the mood to be fixed, I guess. I don't know. But I did another one, a random one. This guy sent me 4 radios for an Infinity. I forget the model, but it was the first full-size sedan with the Infinity nameplate on it in the U.S. and 1990, I think it was. And that radio, it was in rough shape. I picked the best of the 4 to restore, but there were some capacitors that had fallen off, surface mount caps in the tuner that had just completely fallen off. And fortunately, one of the 4 radios still had a good board, and I could use that board I could actually rebuild that board. And so I was luckily able to fix it, but it almost turned into an unfixable unit for that one reason. I had no schematics. Again, they're hard to get, if not impossible. And I didn't have a good reference to work from. So, but anyway, guys, thank you all, and I'll hopefully keep you guys updated as to how things progress.